Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Doggo333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, The New Order as Brazil. And last time we were here together, we started working, we finished up our nuclear stuff. We ended up having to side with Germany, which was a little unfortunate there, wasn't it? And over the break, some might recall last time the foreign policy screen got a little busted. Well, I unbusted it, and by that I mean I just reloaded the game and hopped back. Now, one thing I've noticed off the bat is that I am no longer able to turn towards the Yanks and the US, which is a little unfortunate. Also, since we're doing we're still doing the bill right now, I just kind of boosted up to this point. I figured we'll just start here. Might have a couple repeat events, but we'll just cut through that. I'm going to go ahead and do another focus. So instead, I'm doing a humanist economic program, which entails one of the key components of Adhemar's manifesto in 1965 election was a new humanist economic program, the centerpiece of which was to ensure the full employment was achieved in Brazil. No one will be homeless, everyone will have a job, and most importantly, it would be a good job. Adhemar shall begin implementation of this bill through a speech to the Senate about his aims. Firstly, a wave of mass infrastructure programs will be rolled out throughout Brazil, support development of private industry, and harness our country's natural resources. Secondly, this would attract large amounts of foreign capital towards Brazil, hopefully causing an economic boom. Finally, harnessing the spirit of Monaco, Las Vegas, and Macau, Brazil would be turned into a hub of finance and gambling, attracting the super rich to Brazil and replacing Cuba as a hub for American and European clientele in Latin America. A truly foolproof plan, and through it, the dream of full employment will have been delivered, and Adhemar will have the people's eternal support. There we go. So let's do sponsoring industry. So to compare where we were now with where we are or last time around, 26 seats. I forget how much we had last time around. The distribution is obviously going to be a little bit different now versus last time. I forget what exactly it was previously, but that's what we're looking at now. So we still have some room to grow and gain. Just gotta get there first. Oh, and also, we're now better able to go after. We're actually able to send volunteers. But unlike last time, I might have blundered this a little bit, in all fairness and honesty, but we're about to lose this pretty soon. Table. And the at her desk, twiddling the envelope addressed to Leonel Berzola between her fingers. The contents were short, a carefully curated snippet from latest closed-door meetings. Just words, really. For those in the political sphere, however, these words were bullets. She was about to become an arms dealer. Leaking to Berzola wasn't something she'd ever imagined herself doing. Leaking, period, was something that just felt dirty. Immoral. Wrong. But then she thought about Adhemar. His latest proposal was yet another policy that would funnel resources in the hands of the same old elites. Wouldn't be good for something like this to get shot down. Going against the oligarchs was very definition punching up. Immoral. She scoffed at the very thought. What was she even thinking? This was Adhemar. He liked rolling around in the mud. This was hardly anything other than a taste of his own medicine. Conscience doesn't deliver. So we got some options on what to do. it looks like we're kind of stuck going with Europe, isn't it? Or Germany. Hmm. Yeah, it sucks. I don't know if I really want to go down the hard German stuff, but we might be forced in. Let's do some stuff it doesn't have to do with that. I mean, start with eradicating illiteracy. Go back to where we were previously. And there we go. Less than a mile north of the Chiari River was a small campfire around which Lost Sons of Brazil huddled for warmth. The collapse of the front lines had driven them all into the jungle in pathetic display of panic and disorganization that saw agents and officers of the Brazilian army stranded in the Colombian jungle. On the edge of the camp's light, Lieutenant Vitor Perez Cabral carved his and 6 others' names into a tree with a clip-point knife. Leal, Alvarez, Clemente, Martins, Fontana, Estevez. He expected them all to die. He did not want them all to be forgotten. The other 6 were gathered around the campfire and discussed their next op move. All were in broad agreement that they had 2 options: follow the Kauai to the Amazon and follow the waters to somewhere populated. Risky for them to risk capture of the enemy, no doubt patrolling for stragglers they route on the battlefield. Leal proposed the other option. They head south through the jungle and hope they hit Brazil. Alvarez pointed to the map, which pointed out they were only 20 clicks from the Icana River within Brazil's borders. Clemente chewed them both out. Don't we know how lost they are in the jungle? Martin's tried to calm them all down, but cannot deny that he thinks entering a town is dangerous if they are allied with a new government. Fontana pointed out the obvious. Whatever the outcome, if they stay here, they are dead. When Cabral returned to the group, Estevez was putting out the fire. He told him to rest up. They marched south at first light. He crawled into his bedroom and tried to go to sleep, but the chirping insects, soft rains, and fear of enemy patrol kept him from truly resting. So close to home, and yet so far away. Well, we have tension decrease at least, which is going to be good. I'm very much worried about the Second Patriotic Army over here. Alright, read that one in the past. All our boys made it, well, most of our boys made it back. Let's get some more civilian factories going. Let's get a hospital. Go in some of these places. We've done that one already. Let's get them in on this. Probably bribe the rest through. There we go. What do we want to do? Let's bring religion back into class. Let's say theology is an optional educational subject. How blasphemous. Our youth deserve to be privy to the knowledge of their place in God's good heaven. Therefore, we'll make theology an obligatory class in primary and secondary education. It does not matter if you're a Christian, a Muslim, or, God forbid, an atheist. You shall and will know of our Lord's eternal grace and salvation. that one. Guess now we just sit back and hope that the Germans don't win. Not too optimistic about that. I'll be real. Decades prior, we did that. We read that. Down with the tyranny. Is this how you worship God, Mr. President? Brazil is not a theocracy. These were the posters, along with Brazilian flags and the black, white, and red tricolor PTB that branched at rallies throughout the country. The laborists had at last decided to muster defiance, and for all that social progressive revolution had made inroads throughout the nation, they were still forced to be reckoned with. The cause? Adhemar's decision to force religious education to be mandatory throughout the schools, of course, said João Goulart in an interview. Look, most of us here are God-fearers, but we can't accept people being forced to believe in God. Compulsion in religion is what our medieval ancestors and their Hitlerite imitators like to do. Yet the interview of the former Minister of Labor is not the worst thing for Adhemar. It was a much more passionate speech by Leonel Brizola. How much longer, I ask you, must we tolerate all of this? This Brazil that won for itself its own freedom, that is now tying itself to directive of foreign powers. Then Filinto Müller, that fascistic Germanophile, is leading Adhemar to accept whatever rubbish the Hitlerites offer in exchange for selling out this country and pushing us into fascism. When you consider this religious education proposal in that context, it's not worship but sacrilege. We owe it to our God and ourselves to resist it. As people agreed with Brizola, and some even burned portraits of Adhemar, the target of their hatred was watching them on TV. A glass full of water was thrown on the window as Adhemar's anger went out of control for a brief moment. Openly comparing with the fascists in Europe for simply putting religion back into schools was a low blow. Most likely a political stunt by Brizola to grow his influence throughout Brazil. Once Adhemar calmed down, he weighed the choice and made a decision. We proceed. Their objections be damned. Next, let's do freedom of teaching. We promise teachers more possibilities and flexibility in their way of teaching. We have no intention of leaving promises unfulfilled. Teachers will no longer have to abide by dogmatic standard. And we have no intention of leaving... for instead, they will be able to use holistic approaches that they feel would be most effective for the pupils. As long as they follow the curriculum, then we have no qualms in the way they teach our impressionable youth. Mr. de Matos, said Adhemar, beckoning the Minister of Education to his office. What do you have for me today? The leather chair and sofas were all empty. It was early in the day. Outside the sun shone, soft and gentle upon the leaves of the verdant trees surrounding the palace. De Matos bowed before presenting him a few files. What's this? Education data from the previous administration, de Matos began. Literacy rates, graduation statistics, scores, and other such things. And? Pardon, sir? What's this for? Aren't you the Minister of Education? Why bother me with all this? All these statistics? Well, we do need your approval on pertinent matters. Pardon me. All right. He clapped his hands together. Continue the work of Kubitschek administration. Build schools, hire teachers, modernize what we have. Make everything slick. Make sure nothing sticks. Raise salaries if you have to. Avoid the VP. Don't let her nag on you for half a day about education. Got it? De Matos nodded. Good man. Now. The cabinet awaits. Handle the little details, would you? The people elected me to lead, and I intend to do that just today. Yes, sir. As the assembled delegation of representatives, reporters, and other notable figures were escorted through the hallways, even those opposed to Adhemar had to acknowledge the sights in front of them. The school, refurbished through the funds Adhemar had secured, was clean, modern-looking, and filled with students, both new and returning. The youngest were learning to read, their instructors applying a new standardized learning scheme, and they were doing well. Some of them were even learning alongside their older siblings, though by and large doing better than overall, who themselves had returned to make up a deficit from earlier in life in a time before Adhemar's policy. In other classrooms, slightly older children were learning mathematics, and many were learning other topics besides. Of course, given their young age, maybe children were playing board games or otherwise fooling around, but the energy was undeniable. Some reporters began asking the students about their future dreams. Many had no answer yet, or answers about the usual. One boy, however, clear, impressionable, and bright, even among his peers, stood out. When asked, he was decisive. He wanted to be a doctor, just like President Adhemar. Clearly, the best choice. There we go. How are we doing? Still some governor's complaints. And we read that one before. Who would I rather be? Central government had it pretty rough starting out. Probably sending tanks there wasn't the best call. I will fully acknowledge. We could eradicate adult literacy or supply children's textbooks. Or we could do something else. We could move on elsewhere. Let's check out Barreto's dream. Although Brazilian President Adhemar de Barros is widely regarded as a well-rounded and very knowledgeable individual, he's in fact fully aware that even a great man such as him can't be an expert in all known subjects. Thus, he knows that he must sometimes rely on the knowledge and ideas of others, such as his economic advisor, who has ideas about how to strengthen Brazil due to an overall expansion of its oil industry. So far, he's shown Adhemar nothing but his loyalties, so why not allow him to realize his plans? After all, the decision makes Adhemar the PSP more popular and electable. How could it ever be wrong? I want to check real quick. Healthcare system's coming along. The highway's going to be done in 7 months. So not bad overall. Meanwhile, it cannot be understated how much it will benefit the average Brazilian to be receiving the extra funding towards public services. It is a geopolitical fact. We cannot entirely discount the possibility of lifting the embargo of Germany. Talking on the radio was cut to an abrupt halt midway through sentences when Bo de Campos forgot to shut it off, suddenly cursing himself for tuning in at all. It is what the entire Adhemar propaganda machine had been pushing recently. The cretinous idea of lifting the trade embargo on the Reich was, in any way, a reasonable decision. The entire party had fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker, of course. They'd jump off a cliff as long as Adhemar said so. He bitterly lit a cigar, savoring the ashy taste. What had happened to his career? The heady days of establishing Petrobras had given way to thankless hours of herding together a mob of increasingly reactionary stooges and chamber deputies, in the vain hope that they would grow a moral compass and vote for something genuinely progressive legislation. And now see nothing of Filinto and his clique jumping to call him a communist infiltrator on a hair's trigger. Putting the cigar on an ashtray, Campos sighed. On days like these, he considered leaving PSB for the greener pastures as a way of giving Adhemar's cronies the finger. But how could he? He helped found this party. It was his home, his child. One day Adhemar would be gone, and then it could be led along the correct path. Suddenly a thought struck Campos, and he could have slapped himself. How could he have forgotten? There's another major player in the party, one that he would do very well to make friends with. He dialed a number on the telephone, and could have jumped for joy when the receiver picked up. Governor Vargas, how are you today? Adhemar de Barros walked into the designated meeting place in a suburb some distance away from Brazil's city center. He was approached by a handful of Cadoshal leaders, many of whom Adhemar noted still had the look of people surprised to be in a city built a mere decade ago. Many of the militants were on the younger side, but not so young as to not know of him. The ones that were in their 50s and 40s had met him on Anchieta Island, or at least they thought they had. Adhemar not share their conviction, being very good at pretending to recognize faces. Regardless of prior acquaintance, the leaders all treated Adhemar with reverence, something he relished. At last, Kishimoto gavelled the meeting, kicking off the agenda and gestured at Adhemar to speak. Gentlemen, you may wonder just why I've called you out so far from our common home. Not among the audience, part of it's personal. We've used the good offices of Mr. Kishimoto over here to get things done for some months, but we were not able to meet in person until today. Confucius said, "It's not joyful for friends to come from far away," and this is so. Polite pause. Adhemar continued on. In exchange for your support and strengthening the influence of rival candidates such as Salgado, Kubitschek, Goulart, and Quadros among the Nikkei, no need to counter Lacerda, your people already hate him, I offer the following on the same lines as we did in the past. The mention of Lacerda drew scowls and chuckling. Firstly, we will help you, Tokutai, stay out of prison. Secondly, we will make sure the press keeps silent. Thirdly, I will call you in some favors to ensure that some of these dirty hearts you're concerned about get thrown into the clink for a few days, or however long is necessary. Enthusiastic applause and nods of approval made clear just what they thought that offer. That was the start of something. What does this mean for Uruguay? I don't know, but it's a little scary. Huh. Let's encourage migration. And we got a bit of research to catch up on. There's only so much we can really look at this point. In all honesty, though, I'll just do that stuff, I guess. A meeting was taking place inside the presidential office. Inside, two men discussed the best way to approach Petrobras, Brazil's state-owned oil company. Mr. President, my proposition is quite simple. It's necessary to establish Petrobras as one of the leading petrochemical companies in Latin America. With enough time and competent leadership, Petrobras could find itself among the best of the best. This brings me to my second point. We cannot simply put as many PSP men as we can fit and hope for the best. Benedito made his point clear. Clean leadership and consolidation are what Petrobras needed to reach its full potential. I see your point, Benedito, but I don't think you realize the opportunity that lies here for all of us. The more profits Petrobras generates, the more revenue our government will have for all of its ongoing projects, which will improve our popularity among the public, and with it, make them more likely to vote for the PSP. I hope you can understand my priorities. Benedito, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but think of it this way. In 5 or 10 years, we may no longer be in power, and then what? Some other bastard will claim our achievement as his own. And Mars' vision promised the maximum short-term gain for both Petrobras and the PSP. Discussion went on. It seemed like no side could get the upper hand. Ultimately, the decision was left in Adhemar's hands alone. He weighed his option, and with Benedito's words still echoing his head, he stood up from his desk and addressed his colleagues. Fine, we'll do it your way, but I want to see proper results. Can we not do this one? Do not meet the requirements. What requirements are that? Apparently we are in a crisis? Oh no, we have to do this one, that's right. Shizuo Osawa lit a cigarette, sending tufts of smoke out of the car's open window. The road to Puente Grande was bumpy, yet he drove through the winding streets of Sao Paulo, before soon reaching the city's suburban outskirts. Scanning the house that passed him by, his latest story could hardly wait for him. A Japanese native of Sao Paulo, no less an influential member of its Nikkei community, was arrested just last week, an incident that quickly traveled through the pipeline of rumors and hushed whispers. A droll story at first glance, perhaps, yet the accused was notable as one of the few lacertus decay, and a vocal anti-Adhemar before his arrest. It stunk of discrimination, and Shizuo was determined to prove it. His credentials as a journalist depended on it. Shizuo turned a corner, winding past trees and the occasional pedestrian. Traffic was notably light today. Good. He didn't have time to form a coherent investigation strategy, yet he was piecing together what he could while striving. Of course, he would need to investigate the house and its immediate area first, recording whatever the police hadn't already plucked away from the scene. Then witnesses would need to be drawn up. He doubted that the police would talk, though any clerks and low-rung bookkeepers may be more keen to share details. Rounding one final corner, he spotted the stone fencing that stretched across the property's perimeter. Shit. Just next to the door in his front lawn, scrawled in Japanese, a message clear as day. Traitor to the nation. Parking his car on the curb, he approached the message, brushing a palm against it. Dry. Still, a foreboding warning. One might have been intimidated by it, but not Shizuo. In fact, it only emboldened him. Interesting indeed. Let's go with his ideas. Although his personal greatness is an undeniable fact known by all in Brazil and the world, President Adhemar is an incredibly humble man. He knows that he can't do everything by himself, so he must sometimes delegate the significant tasks of government to other people. Thus, he's given carte blanche to his economic advisor, Barreto, to start his work on revitalizing Petrobras and the Brazilian oil industry. And he shall do what a particular great friend of Adhemar wanted: take a broom and start to sweep away most of the corruption by changing directors in Petrobras and increasing salaries, while making his ministry more involved in enforcing ethics of work and company. The reputation of Brazil's greatest national company must not be muddied by corruption and other crimes. Hours of cigarette smoke hovered around Antonio Vidal and stuck to his cake layers of sweat. Tonight, he was not cataloging inventory logs, prescription records, audit trails that seemed to cut short, testimonies on hospital misbehavior. No, that was yesterday. Last night, he'd already found shortfalls in opioid quantities, inexplicable surges in revenue, and correspondence blatantly admitting to kickbacks and bribery, plenty to expose the BSP for the frauds they are. However, right as he was summarizing his feelings, a terrible thought dawned on him, haunting him to the very core. Today, Vidal had driven across the whole city, overstuffing his briefcase. From crack of dawn to setting sun, he lined up at government buildings, argued with clerks at clinic administrator's office, and snuck into insurance companies as a consultant. When he returned to newspaper headquarters, he skipped dinner and began sorting through piles of workforce data and utilization statistics, hoping for any sign his worst fears weren't true. And yet medicine prices kept lowering, rural services kept expanding, and patient satisfaction kept improving. While the quality of care metrics had irregularities, there was a noticeable drop after the healthcare bill passed. Against all his journalistic instincts, our numbers forced him to accept that perhaps hospitals now had much less to hide regarding their effectiveness. Crumpling the papers and tossing them in the approximate direction of the bin, he collapsed back into his chair. He would have to find another project that could pay his bills. No matter how corrupt Adhemar was, no reader would care about the president stealing when he really was delivering. We have contested executive power. Interesting. Are we researching that already? We are, so we'll just skip ahead there. No one, absolutely no one, is a more knowledgeable person than on the matter of the oil industry in Brazil than President Adhemar de Barros. He is truly an expert when it comes to both the strengths and the weaknesses of the Brazilian oil industry, especially of the national champion company Petrobras. So he's fully aware that one of the main issues affecting the company is processing capabilities. Thus, an increasing efficiency of Petrobras' oil processing, the administration shall create Petrochem, a subsidiary of Petrobras focused on petrochemistry, which would increase the future possibilities of all Brazilian industries that are reliant on chemistry, especially those in need of ethene, which production should increase thanks to an intensification of its conversion from naphtha. "4 months, you say?" Well, let's see if we can grind this shit out then. Yoshige Taki stepped off the bus, stretched his arms, and watched it disappear into the next street. Outside of the streets of Liberdade, we're in the middle of a shift change. Shops opened and closed, restaurants prepared for the dinner rush, and children were trudging back home from their study sessions. It occurred to Hiroshige he usually saw Chiyoko by this point. He hadn't seen her in a week, more now that he thought of it. He went walking through the streets, taking longer. While he kept an eye out for her, thoughts of Chiyoko faded away as he let his own worries and troubles consume him. He'd been thinking about his own place in the world for some time, what he believed in, what he'd support, what he died for, if it came to that. It all began when he saw the VPR for the first time, speaking what he'd only ever thought. He stopped in the middle of the street, ran the other way, and leaned around a corner shop. That was her, no doubt. Chiyoko surrounded by housewives and... Wait. That was Endo, was it? They hadn't crossed paths yet, but he knew the SVA's assistant professor by reputation. He seemed too close to Chiyoko, even with the housewives around her. Sure. No, there was something beyond crude desire that united the two. Yet even at this distance, he recognized the camaraderie between the small cluster of people and feared the worst. Surely Chiyoko was smarter than that. The Sakura Volunteer Army? Right-wing nutjobs who told young men like him to die in Indonesia, Malaysia, or whatever new frontier the Japanese Empire stuck its dick into that year. But he could see even from there that Chiyoko's face was one of resolve and faith. Whatever she'd been told by these loyalists, she believed it. He resolved himself to speak to her about this once he had a moment of free time. "Are you sure that you have nothing on any of them?" Shizuo repeated, exasperated. He was certain that somewhere there had to be a lead that would connect the Kadosha with Adhemar. He had yet to find anything truly damning, however, and as the day was coming to an end, he only succeeded in whittling down his leads. "I'm afraid not. We have a few similar names in the archives, but nothing more serious than disorderliness in the war. I presume some other family connections. Some might be family connections, but that's about it." She turned to another, opening up the front page and handing it to Shizuo. "It's certainly a lot quieter here since Adhemar got in office, I've noticed." Nodding again slightly, Shizuo handed the file back. "Impressive that he's fought for them at such a premium, huh?" He paused for a second. "Look, all I really care is about anything with the name of Kishimoto. Maybe a Shugo Kishimoto. I know he was arrested a few times for embezzlement, and he's still around today. Do you think you might be able to find something on him?" The clerk didn't even bother looking through available files this time. "We're currently transferring some of our older archives to a different facility. I don't know the name, and files can get lost, but I should be able to find where if you give me a day or so." She responded flatly as her eyes turned to the clock. Finally, Shizuo buckled, a slight grimace on his face, but he was suppressed. "Well, I suppose you can't blame bureaucracy." He scribbled Kishimoto onto a scroll of paper before handing it forward, giving her some information on who he was before wishing her well and leaving. Some of it she conceded she hadn't known about before. She looked towards the clock again and then out the window to the setting sun. With how much was in that bribe, she struggled to figure out where best to spend it. The clerk seems to hold high regard in Adhemar's legacy. And my money's going to be on New Granada has 3 fucking volunteers being sent to it. Colombia, well, the Revolutionary Union also has 3. The Germans only have 1. The Second Patriotic Army, rather. The Revolutionary Union's not doing great, though. Rats. This has harmed our electoral chances greatly, as well as military loyalty. I expected better. Didn't we all? Our nepotism is fucking nuts. Holy shit. Let's buy him off now. Let's send some guys. Nothing in the past week had gone as Shizuo hoped. Any potential leads he had found were long exhausted. Attempts to find files or police records had been met with dismissals, each more aggressive than the last. His paranoia ran deep, but he realized the risks of working off that alone. Thinking back, his mind remained on his last meeting, a query from his editor about what leads he had found, and then advised to abandon the story and write on topics he had actually found evidence behind. His considerations were cut short as he returned home. The door caught onto something remaining ajar, and Shizuo had to force himself in. He looked around, then down to a large package, small enough to naturally fit through his mailbox. He had still carefully laid down, blanketed by 2 leaflets made for charity drives. He hesitated slightly, but his interest in what it could be brought him to his kitchen. Brought his fingers to his side and then upwards. The answer overwhelmed his curiosity the moment after. A loud bang fired as he was forced back, a plume of yellow smoke blasting the room. Pain seared across, the impact of 1,000 knives superseded by raging burns. His ears ringing with deafening screech, Shizuo tried to open his eyes, only met with yet more pain, forcing a scream that rapidly collapsed into a violent cough. Through the agony, his mind flicked to the obvious. It had been a mustard gas bomb. Giving himself just a moment for his pain to wash over once more, Shizuo attempted to force himself up, then forward his arms failed him. Crawling forward until finally finding a chair to force himself onto. Shaking, he opened his eyes once more, bore the brunt of its fiery pain once more, looked at the box once more, noticing in moments not marked by agony, a paper note. Though smudged and yellowed, its single word remained clear, written in underlined bleeding black ink. Makagumi. If you come for the king, you better not miss. Well, let's go ahead and do... Did we not do this? I think we read this. We did read this before. Yeah, it looks like New Granada's gonna win. Which tension is at least starting to go down a little bit. It's still dangerous, but it could be worse. Sumitada Taki stepped off a train carriage, rolled his aching shoulders, and walked down the platform. He passed by posters and advertisements on the station wall. One of them bore a picture of a beautiful Japanese woman, 30s, long dark hair, piercing eyes. It's like seeing her all over again. She died when he was away, when he only had the photograph of her tucked away in a bug-riddled mattress. Thought of returning to her side kept him for the long nights when he held a shiv under the pillow, when he slaved away for pennies in the workshop and worried. As he rounded the corner of the street, he heard shouting from his room. It was Chiyoko and Hiroshige and them alone. He ran for the front door, only having them jump when it swung open. Chiyoko mid-flight and Hiroshige behind her shoulder. The three looked at each other for a moment. Chiyoko, her eyes full of tears, slid past her father and ran out the door. You're brainwashed, Chiyoko! Don't you get it? Hiroshige shouted after, but Chiyoko's outran his chiding. She slipped beyond their sight, around the same corner. Sunmitada glared at him, stepped in and shut the door. Hiroshige had a few inches on him, but his father's glare pierced souls. What was that about? It's... Some code between siblings was just about to be broken. Hiroshige needed only a moment to justify it to himself. Chiyoko, she's in with a really bad crowd. Not drugs or anything, but the SVA. You know, those fanatics? Now she's in with another group, this Kashoda, and I don't know where. He trailed off, suddenly face from his father that none had ever glimpsed before. His eyes were wide, his mouth twitched, and his jaw drooped slightly. It looked like face of abject fear. Stay here. Do not open the door until I come back. Let's go ahead and do improved energy production. It was a calm day in the center of Sao Paulo. on a bench nestled between a park's vegetation. Another couple watched the world pass them by. The couple had lived in the area for decades, but even as it grew, the saplings planted around blossoming into full trees, the benches beneath slowly moving as their predecessors rotted away from damp and age. This one little spot had remained there. From the distance, the brigadier Kishimoto, chants selling newspapers, interrupted momentary greetings to local community leaders. There goes Kishimoto again, spoke Kazu Haruno, chuckling slightly to herself. With how much he took from the Shindo Renmai, who knew he was still looking for more? Not surprised that he's gone from one band of thugs to another, though. Husband Koda simply chuckled. Well, it certainly beats the number of people who used to sing Quadros' praises. At least we get a man willing to stand up to the Americans now. He searched for another name, one calling himself an integralist, but he couldn't quite recall it. His face suddenly grew more grim. I do wish that the police spared us, though. Every night now I can hear some poor kid being thrown from their bed and into a jail cell. Haruno nodded in turn, looking down as a young cyclist passed him by. Did you hear that Toyonubo's boys got arrested last night? Vandalism, they said. And just last year, he was in the best in his school. Adhemar said that he's trying to crack down on it, that he's talking to people on the inside. Could have listened for a moment, then nodded. That would be good, yes. He looked down the aisle towards the playground filled with young children. We need to stand up for ourselves at some point, but for now, it's good that people at Adhemar are willing to take a stand for our behalf. The president becomes a champion once more in the national consciousness. I come from the countryside and would like to know how to raise chickens. The words were not hers. Shiyoko slapped her head behind her. She was staring at the looming presence of her father. How'd he find her? She'd run quickly and hadn't followed her straight away, but here he was, at the doorway for Kadosho. Shiyoko. Go home. The grill in the front door did not slide open. Instead, the door simply unlocked, crack open by her father's voice. Shiyoko froze, and some primal fear reaction drove her away from him. She stepped into the door and then broke into a sprint inside. Sumitada cursed, running in after her. Inside of Kadosha's men saw Chiyoko run in their protection, followed by her pursuer, a middle-aged man in slacks and a wide-brimmed hat. He moved with languid fury, reluctant to even be here. Endo, young and brash, stepped forward. Hey, old man, he said, his body in Sumitada's vision framed against the rising sun. I don't think you belong here. Sumitada scanned the room. Young men, always young. Always so many foolish young men here. There was an old man in the corner, sitting down with a can in his hand, looking with faint recognition at him. Sumitada didn't recognize him, and no one else who recognized Sumitada. Chiyoko was next to him, pressed into a corner. Hey! I'm not asking you again. Endo stepped forward. Once, twice, closing the distance and grabbing Sumitada by the shoulder. Sumitada grabbed his arm with one hand and drove his free palm to Endo's elbow, breaking it in two. We already read this one, I believe. Now we sit back and wait for that. Let's create Senpes. President Adhemar is in the simple dumb country bumpkin some people believe he is. He's much smarter than most people think. He's indeed knowledgeable in many matters of the modern world, and indeed on the day-to-day scientific research and development, R&D, is needed for the Brazilian nation and its many institutions to adapt to the many needs of the modern world. Thus, the Adhemar administration has announced the creation of a Center for Research, Development, and Innovation, Leopoldo Américo Miguez de Melo, which will be a particular unit of Petrobras devoted to research, which shall help the company to increase profitability and sustainability thanks to applying the innovative technological solutions will show that the Adhemar administration is progressive in all areas. There we go. How are we doing with our development stuff? Military's coming along. Industry. Industrial expertise especially is coming along. Admin stuff's not doing too hot. Everything else is just kind of Stagnated. Gazing into what was once the Amazon, Edna Lott did not know what to think. She was no naturalist, but she knew enough of the forest, of nature in general, to know what was amiss. Every step was a stomp, every breath was a squall. The demonstration may have been blinding, but neither fireball nor shockwave could match with silence still choking out 4 kilometers of the lungs of the earth. Edna. Her name did not register. Edna. This time her eyes darted around, finally landing the source of a familiar voice. Edna. Kubitschek. She turned to face him, shaking off what thoughts of the nuclear scar she could. I did not know you decided to stay. Yes, well, it's an occasion worth soaking in. How's the family? Enrique is good, as are the children. She paused, her eyes focusing and her voice strengthening. Tens of thousands of these city killers. How much should we spend on one more? Are we not better than our rivals? Defense, I understand, but the entire world seems to have developed an obsession for mass suicide, and it cannot bear to stand as an accomplice. I felt much the same, but if this is any consolation for all his faults, Adhemar's not alone in this. Many others would have done exactly this. Then we are all guilty. For a moment, the silence returned. I will leave you with time with your thoughts, but if you feel the need, do not hesitate to call. Tell Enrique I wish him well. He turned to leave, and she turned to stare, staring at the crater, staring at the silence, staring at the future. And the future stared back. How are we doing, nuke-wise? Program security compromised, security level high. Got 3... Is that Argentina's or ours? I wonder. What do we have to... What point do we lose again? I'm going to have one more focus, one more event to read, and we are done. There were 21 men in the Kadosha bunkers who dedicated their lives to the Japanese Empire. One of them was bawling, clutching his broken elbow. Another had broken his vows, stared at the rest. Chiyoko, who had yet to take her own vows, stared at it all in horror and puzzlement. 2 men lunged at Sumitada, shouting some profanity that cut off when they overshot and threw themselves into the wall behind him. Chiyoko blinked. No, Sumitada had thrown them himself. Another lunged in and threw a punch. Sumitada grabbed his arm, and the moment carried the attacker over his shoulder and onto the hard concrete. Another grabbed a nearby Tonto, tried to slash him, but Sumitada saw it coming and stepped out of the way, hooking his leg and hip and throwing him into the ground. Kadosha fell over each other in a panic to grab him, but Sumitada flowed between them. Chiyoko thought he was some whirring machine of pain, throwing bodies into bodies and sweeping them all up as if they were mere dust. Sumitada felt slower, years of rust and age that couldn't be shaken off, but blood was rising in his veins, and anger imbued him with an energy he had not felt in years. Some poor kid grabbed a fallen knife and raised it high, hoping to catch an overhead stab. Sumitada turned, grabbed the arm, and all will fled from the kid's body. He dropped the Tanto and ran from the bunker. A rougher veteran tried to take advantage, rising up behind Sumitada and tackled him by the waist. He tried to grab his shirt, but Sumitada took hold of his fingers and pulled him back. A sickening crack and a pained yowl followed. He rose, staring at the others. Some laid out in pain, others paralyzed in fear. His eyes glided over Chiyoko and focused instead on an old man in the corner. The sickening stare in the old man, matched only by the cold frustration in Sumitada's eyes. Then the old man began to clap. Oh boy. Well, it looks like New Granada's probably going to win. Let me take a quick look at the world real quick. Fry one over here, nothing too crazy here. Prone one here. Just in case. That probably changes some things, I'd imagine. Pinay's over here. Free France seem to have lived. Got some fighting shit going on in Central Asia. Who won in Japan? Sanosuke, okay. Still same in South Africa. Still George here. Diefenbaker there. Lozano here, which is interesting. Nothing's happened in India yet. And nothing's going to happen for a bit. At least not in this video, because I have to end things here. But thanks always for watching, gang. Like, dislike, or didn't, leave any comments, feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I do appreciate any if you might have for me. Hit the sub button, hit the notification bell to keep updated with uploads as they come out. I think you all know the deal by now. Thanks for watching. My name has been Mr. Dogboat333. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.